You're listening to Anatomy for Life with Crystal and Nicole, where we discuss the anatomy behind the most popular physical and spiritual practices so you can get the most out of these modalities on your healing journey.
To our podcast today, we're so excited. I'm so excited to have Sharee here today because she's one of my favorite people and has helped me so many ways over the last couple of years. Our topic today is foot zoning, and so we've got the best person here for you for that. And we're going to kind of go into some of that anatomy and some of the things, but first I just want to give a little background. So jump in here and correct me if I'm forgetting the details. But she's been a massage therapist for a lot of years. 12 years. Foot zoning.
7.
For 7 years. Lymphatic massage.
2.
For 2 years, as well as mostly her whole life a proficient energy worker. Yeah. And tell me some of your hobbies.
Cycling, mountain and road, all things with wheels, and yoga, and hiking, and gardening. I like to grow things.
And you also love dogs.
I do love dogs.
My favorite thing about you.
I do love dogs.
We can bond on so many levels. So we just really are excited to be able to delve deeper into this newer, it's not a new modality, right? And I'm sure you'll give us the history of it, but it seems newer to us around here and what people are finding out about. It is not reflexology. It is not massage. And that's what I want to emphasize because I've never gotten results like this through those modalities. But when foot zoning came into my life and Sharee came into my life, there have been shifts on physical levels, inner anatomical levels, and energetic levels that I've just never experienced before. And there's lots of reasons that I want to hear about for all of that. So I'm just wondering if you'll give us kind of like a brief history of like, what is foot zoning?
Yeah, so okay, more people are familiar with the term reflexology. And reflexology and foot zoning have the same roots. It just depends on where in the world you're coming from. So reflexology is more of a Western, has a Western background, but they all work off the pressure points of the feet. So foot zoning actually works with the different zones, and reflexology does too, but foot zoning has, at least in this modality, in this lineage, there's a lot of anatomy and physiology. Reflexology doesn't necessarily have anatomy and physiology to that as either. Reflexology, like you can press on something and it can be like your headache point or whatever it is. But the underlying cause or the issue is what we really have to get to. So reflexology works off of that pressure point.
Kind of like acupuncture.
Yes. Or acupressure.
Okay.
It's not puncture because we're not going through the skin. It's pressure on a specific point. Okay. Foot zoning works through all of the systems of the body. So we're talking about lymphatic, fascia, muscles, nerves, the brain, all of the glands and brain nerves. So we get the nervous system, we get the circulatory system, the endocrine system, like all 7, if I'm remembering right. And I could very well not be remembering right.
And I just taught this last weekend, so technically we could list 11.
Yes.
If you count, yes.
If you count all of the little intricacies, foot zoning, this modality, this lineage uses
They're
all
all
of
in
those.
there. Yeah.
They are. And when I first was introduced to foot zoning years ago in massage school, I was like, that's really cool. And then I found this one and it just blew it out of the water because there's so many different advanced signals.
I love that. And one thing I wanted you to reiterate was what you had told me previously when I was like, why are people so much more willing to go get something like this done as opposed to participate in like these bigger, maybe more scarier healing modalities? Like it's hard for me to get someone to come to yoga and move their body in a gross way, right? Or get a massage, or like there's some other things, but for someone to just work on your feet.
Yeah, it's
It's
very
accessible.
simple. It's very simple and it's less invasive. It's not intimidating. It's not invasive, and it's not like we're teaching people to come back in and connect to their body. So in all of the years of doing massage and foot zoning and whatever, and energy work, people with trauma, it's hard for them to access their body or stay in their body or have anybody touch them. But your feet are far enough away from anything that it's a non-invasive, it's very non-invasive, but it's also very therapeutic. Like the trajectory of health just dramatically improves. So it's a baseline, it's a very, very basic thing that people can start with and work into things. But I've also found that so many people are so disconnected from their own body. Like to say, come to yoga, it's like, where in time and space am I? And this is not comfortable. But people can go, oh, here's my feet. And even as weird as this is, like people who might have big feet or small feet, or they might be overweight or they might be underweight, feet are almost neutral. Like I wear a size 7. Okay, I can accept a size 7 foot. There's no judgment on a shoe size as opposed to like a body size or something like that.
There's something like massage where you might feel self-conscious.
Yes.
And not be able to actually release those emotions or whatever it may be.
Yeah, they're
because
easier to wind up.
you're holding yourself.
Yeah,
Yes.
and there's a guard. But for whatever reason, foot zoning allows people to have enough space and they can let the guard down.
So why don't you talk a little bit about when you are doing foot zoning, what you're actually doing and how it helps.
Okay. So we follow a protocol. Like we learn this protocol and you become proficient enough in it that all of a sudden you have your own way, your own style. So we are first moving lymph because we've got to get the lymph to move so everything else can fall in line. So we start with the lymph, and what we're doing is I wish I had a gemstone. You could see it here on my hand, but the hands are other reflex points. So if people don't have feet, you can work on their hands, same effects. Or if they have neuropathy due to diabetes, hands are also another way to access it. So we start with moving the lymph, and we're always moving towards the heart too. So we start on the right and we move to the left. Mm-hmm. So what we're really doing is feeling and sensing what's possibly happening in the body at any given point in time. So based on the feedback that we're seeing in the feet, we can go, oh, there may be some congestion here, or there's a tightness in.
So you're like actually rolling a little gemstone across the skin.
And not every school uses gemstones, but this is one. Okay, let me back up just a little bit. Whatever modality you choose or whatever lineage you choose, it's going to be effective. It's going to help.
Sure.
And the same with reflexology. I'm not saying one is better than the other. This is just my experience, and it is helpful. So the school that I learned from, they started incorporating gemstones into their practice for multiple reasons. So if you understand piezoelectricity at all, it blows your mind when you start going, oh, we're going to add this frequency of this gem to this foot with this pressure, and then we get this piezoelectric effect.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a game changer as far as like the hardness. I mean, you can get really, I call them ET knuckles, these crazy looking knuckles. So it's less harsh on your hands, but there's more, it's actually way more expansive than just a knuckle. And it's not as much, it's not as harsh, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's not pointed. So we're feeling for certain things, and there's different signals that you'll feel, like soft, mushy, or crunchy, or there's sometimes hard crystallized nuggets, or sometimes it feels like a tendon and it just pops.
And that signifies different things to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So those all have different meanings, and depending on where we're finding them gives us a little clue into possibly what's happening. Now, also, just like any scope of practice, we do not prognosticate, we do not diagnose, and we do not prescribe. We can make suggestions, we can refer to other professionals who that may be their scope of practice. But I've had more than one client over the years, and I'm like, something's not right.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend you go see someone.
I was wondering if you tell us one of those stories anonymously, of course, where you have made that suggestion to send them somewhere, and what did they have?
So it was a man, actually, and he had like his feet, the bottom of his feet were like dough, and so I could try to hit the signal going in, and it would just go and go and go and go and go. Like,
Okay, and what should the bottom of our feet feel like?
so they should feel pretty solid.
Like our palm.
Yeah, like the palm. So I was like, I think you might have a candida problem. And he was like, how do men get yeast overgrowth?
Oh, anybody can.
So it's in his gut. And he was like, that's weird. I said, well, what do you eat? He's like, just protein bars. And I was like, So I referred him to a doctor, and sure enough, he had a massive candida overgrowth, massive. And it was making him tired and weight gain, and he just felt like garbage. He was like, this is just weird. How do you know this? And I'm like, well, there are certain things that we learn, but also there's...
Because your feet are made of dough.
Yeah, they should not be made of
The body tells you.
Yes. The body can't lie. It just doesn't lie.
Right.
Well, and in the process of those foot zones, when you're actually doing the technique on him, that in and of itself is therapeutic for the ailment, right?
Yes.
Like it's corrective.
Yes, it can be corrective.
Okay.
So foot zoning is meant to restore the body back to its original blueprint of health. So the body knows innately how to heal itself without, like if we give it the right environment, it will heal itself. Foot zoning is one of those. So you may be getting headaches, or anybody can be getting headaches, but why are you getting headaches? It could be a hormone issue. It could be stress. It could be dehydration. It could be like, I don't know, 10 different things. So if we address the body in its entirety every time, and that's what foot zoning is meant to do, is address the body in its entirety, the body will automatically go back to its original blueprint of health at some point. It may take a little longer, and you may have to do more than one thing, like maybe, drink water or exercise, or maybe, change your diet just slightly or whatever. And it varies on each person. But yes, the body will do that. And I've seen that happen over and over and over. And it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
Something I was just going to say, something I love about that is we actually did a previous podcast episode where we talked about the autoimmune diseases and things that I had dealt with. And one of the problems that I experienced was when I would go to the doctor and I would say, I'm having this issue, maybe it was a gut issue, and but I'd say, but I'm also having this issue simultaneously. And the doctor would say, oh, that's not related. This is, I didn't, because I am just trained in the gut. So that was always the problem, is they would isolate me like I wasn't a connected body. And I would get so frustrated, and I would say, don't these doctors talk to each other? Can they all get in like one room so I don't have to, go to this doctor and that doctor? Can they not all just talk so they can say all these things are happening at once? And it was on that journey that I actually discovered foot zoning. So funny enough, it was because my husband was looking for healing modalities for me that he came across foot zoning. And I'd heard the term, but didn't know much about it. And he went and bought a book. And all I know is the lady who wrote it decades ago, before it was really very well known in the U.S. And her name was Eunice. And he would always tell me,
Eunice Ingham.
That's it. And he would always tell me, I'm channeling Eunice when I'm going to try and, And he taught himself foot zoning. Now, was he professional? No. But he used it as a way to be able to try to start helping me, because I couldn't leave my home and keep going to all these doctors. And Yes, then eventually I went to professional foot zoner. But the difference it made in the first few times that he worked on my feet, and he would push on a certain area, and I would, ow, and I would say, that hurts so bad. He'd say, oh, that's your intestine. It's exactly what I was having problems with, and it was fascinating to me. And he would work on my feet for about a half hour, and a lot of times it was very painful for me because of all the trauma I had in my body. And he probably wasn't even doing it fully correctly, but that made me a believer because every time I had relief. And I started to realize it was because it was really focusing on the body as a whole, like you're talking about. And I just fell in love with foot zoning because of that.
That's very true. So Eunice Ingham is actually a reflexologist, and she's the one who she coined that term. As far as my history lesson, no, as far as I go. Now, there's someone who probably could debate me on that, but this is just what I know. So that's more reflexology. But even at that, understanding like those points, he's helping.
Okay. Yes. And thank you for differentiating.
Yeah. So years ago, my husband got super sick, and I just felt like, okay, go find something. And I still have this book to this day. Like 28 years ago, I found, or I don't even know how long I spent. 28, 29, 50, whatever. It's something like that.
Together.
I found this book on reflexology and meridians, and I was green, like I didn't understand the words. I had never had one anatomy class, but he was so sick. And I remember just working on his feet and like looking at the book and hoping, and he did get better. But that fast forward now into the last, in 2000, let's see, when did I take that class? 2015, he died. And that was the next trajectory for me. But it was not just reflexology, like pushing. It was like the anatomy and the physiology, like magnifies when you understand why we're working the ileocecal valve, and here's where it is, or the appendix, or the liver, and the sections of the liver, and what they do, and what they store, and what they hold, and where the head of the pancreas is, and where the tail of the pancreas is, or the head of the stomach, and the tail of the stomach, etc., etc. It goes on and on and on. It makes a difference. And
yeah, it's so much more targeted. And I love that you dove into the anatomy, because the more we do understand about those body systems and the chemical processes that are going on, instead of just kind of taking a hammer, right? You're taking a scalpel.
Yes.
So one thing that has always fascinated me about one of the things that you focused on in the past was the brain. I don't know if you remember when I had that concussion and I came to you.
Vaguely.
You work with so many people.
Well,
so many people. Well, yes, so in the body and our gross anatomy, all those things. But I remember it was like around the toes and the tip of the toes. It's almost like you took a scalpel and you can actually access like each cranial nerve individually, right? Parts of the brain.
And the cranial bones.
Yes.
And we can even do a cranial hold, which is a cranial sacral move that is a reset, like it's a still point induction is what in cranial sacral it's called. But yes, for people with concussions, you can navigate those bones because they are not fused. They're very fluid, and we can get into the sphenoid and the ethmoid, all of the sinuses, every single sinus cavity. So people with concussions, and they need that decompression, it's great. It's great for that. And even people who are doing hormone treatments or going through puberty, you can see the pituitary gland on the toe and it just pokes out.
Yeah.
And every toe, this is also like there's always a backup for the backup for the backup. Okay. Right? Yes. The body just works that way. So you can look at the toes and they're all the same. So like you're missing your big toe, your second toe is going to start, you'll see the same signals on that toe. They match in case you miss something.
True. And then there's that crazy story you always tell about, do you have an IUD or are you
pregnant?
Because there is also a specific point for the uterus and cervix.
Yes, that is true. And that's always kind of an interesting thing when someone does have an IUD or they're pregnant. You can see it, or you can feel that.
In your foot.
Yeah.
You can feel it in your foot.
Amazing.
It is a strange thing. When my dad had a bypass, they put a stent in his heart, and I could feel the stent where they put that in.
Yeah, it's like you go and you just have to trust Sharee, because it's like you bear your whole soul. Like she gets out everything about you from the
From
stuff.
that.
So, and I love that. But also, there's that energetic aspect, because you're an energy worker. And so this is another thing I really appreciated about your foot zones, which I echoed again because my daughter has gone to you and she loves it, and I think it's because she feels seen. And that is a basic human, one of our basic needs is to be seen and feel seen, even if we think we don't want to. And so there's just this very special component to doing this kind of work, as I know you know, but I just feel dear to my heart because you've helped me and my family. Where I notice when you do the things, the way you talk about it, or sometimes you'll take a deep breath, right? Or sometimes you'll be doing energy work in support of that. Will you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think I have to think about it, like, because it's become so integrated in what I do that I have to break it down, and because I don't think about it. But you can also access the chakras and the energy centers through the feet, whichever works for you, whichever verbiage works better for you. And there is something very, without sounding too dramatic, sacred about like working on someone's feet. I don't know what that is.
Yes.
But there is something. There's something when you pick up someone's feet, there's a connection. And it's not me. I'm only a conduit, and I've known that from the very beginning of this whole journey. It's about them. And so things just flow. They just, sometimes I open my mouth and things come out, and I go, I'm not quite sure who that is or what that is, but here you go.
What a beautiful gift.
So it's not always anatomy and physiology either. Oftentimes there's emotional healing or spiritual healing or whatever. It's whatever that client needs, and it's never the same. No two sessions are ever the same.
Truly, because what do our feet signify, in our energetic body?
Yeah, and they change. They change from day to day or moment to moment. I don't know why I want to share this, but I'm going to share this. So, going back to your comment of my feet hurt so bad when he would rub them or he would work on them, that's very indicative of a very sick person. So usually the first foot zone is the most painful because we're breaking things up. Like we're literally taking this foot that has been in foot coffins and we're opening it up and saying, hello world, and now these feet are different. And it hurts.
Yeah, that was exactly my experience.
And then as you go on this journey, you exponentially get better faster, and it hurts less and less every single time until you're getting sick again. And then it hurts again. And it's, I remember before COVID came, I was working on a client. I was like, something is not right. Like she was like, my feet hurt so bad today. And I was like, you're getting sick. And 2 days later, she was sick as a dog. So those are indicators. But here's another interesting thing. When people are dying, there are no signals.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Explain that. Like no feedback or no pain?
No, nothing. Like there's no signal. So when you push on a reflex point, you can feel the signal. Like there's something in there. There's a feedback. So my mother-in-law was dying. She didn't know she was dying. She had leukemia, and they put her in the hospital, and they were trying to fix some things, and she asked me to come work on her and just rub my feet. Will you please just rub my feet? So I was working on her, and I was like, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. And that was also a very strange moment to know that she was going to die. And it was just a few weeks later that she did die.
Wow.
But yeah, like the body shuts down before we know that it's shutting down or it's getting sick. It's always talking. It's always giving us feedback.
That's what I was going to say. There's always that somatic feedback.
Yes.
Are we in tune? Are we listening? Are we making that a priority on the daily? That's the
Yes.
question. Yeah. So if there was something you could leave our listeners with, or I will put in the show notes how to get a hold of you in whatever way you want that to be. But is there anything you want to talk about? I know that you're training people to do this. I know you've got things in the work. I know there's an Instagram handle you want them to have, because I'm sure there's many more questions and just many more people that can be helped by this. What can we leave them with?
Try it. It's not going to hurt anything. And if it works for you, like this is not, I'm not going to say this is modality for everyone. I mean, I think it is because I love this, but it might not be for everyone. But if this is something that works, the question I get asked, how often should I do this? Whatever you do, be consistent. The signals actually will last between 10 and 15 days. So they last longer than massage signals, which I love, and you can exercise. You don't have to kind of let your body rest,
Right.
which I'm not good at. And things to do.
I need to
Places to go.
I need to go up that mountain and conquer that road.
That's great. But we don't, anyway, the signals last longer, and you process out these interesting emotions oftentimes, and that can be like a 4-day process.
Okay.
So what I tell clients is, okay, do whatever you're going to do, be consistent. If it's once a month, make it once a month. Do this for yourself. This is not self-care. This is health prevention. This is a preventative thing.
I love that. I love that. And don't you have a school open right now where I know a lot of people that I associate with are healers in their own right and have other modalities and are looking to add and just learn?
Yes. So I will be opening, or I will be teaching again in March. We'll start a class. You can contact me at Blissful Body Foot Witch on Instagram, and I'm happy to answer questions, anything about that. And it's a 7-month course, 1 weekend a month. And literally all of the coursework is done online. So when we come to class, it is hands-on for 7 months. So you're extremely proficient by the time you come out of this.
I love that.
So that's coming up too.
Thank you. And thank you for doing that. We'll put that in the show notes, and that's on my bucket list too. You've just done so much good. And I just feel so grateful that you were here telling us about it and you could be with us today. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so appreciative of it.